Hello, people of the internet, this is M&K Xbox. Today we have a review of the mighty ISU 152. This thing is feared across every game server of every World of Tanks thing there is. If you see an ISU 152, you shit your pants and you run in the opposite direction 50 miles. There's a very good reason for that, and we shall get onto it later. So yeah, this is just going to be a standard review of the ISU 152. So it's this thing is brilliant. Now I'm not too sure what's happened, and the two games I'm going to show you I've literally just played. The server, the new 8.11 test server or 8.11 server has just been released today, and I've just downloaded it. So I've only been playing today, and I'm just taking a few screenshots. Oh look, ISU 152, Mastery Badge, Ace Tanker. That's nice, I've been trying to get that for a while. If I scroll up a little bit more, oh look, Victory, ISU, Mastery Badge, Ace Tanker. What the fuck is going on? I don't really know why this is doing what it is. That is something I cannot ever explain to you, ever. It's beyond me. I have no idea why it's decided to give me two mastery badges. But this is the first time I have got the mastery badge. This was my first game that I got the mastery badge in, and then it decided to give me it again. So I'm not too sure what that's all about. But anyway, on with the review. So this is, of course, the retarded. When I say retarded, I mean retardedly good ISU 152. I'm gonna do the general little dance that I tend to do around the screen. So it has 1010 hit points. As with most tier 8 tank destroyers, they do have a very low health pool. I'm not sure, but this is kind of around a sort of mid area. I know this is 950 or 900, I think, or 990, so this one has less than 1000. I know the French AMX AC-48, that's got 1000 on the dot. The Ferdinand has more. Jagdpanther 2, it could have the same. I know the Ferdinand has... where the fuck's it gone? There it is. I know the Ferdinand is about 1200, so... and the Jagdpanther 2 could be the same. Oh no, 50 less. So it's sort of sitting on the lower end, and the T28 prototype has 1150, and I believe its non-turreted brother has the same as well. So it kind of sits on the lower end of the health pool, which does mean that it can... well, I'll talk about that in a second. So the tank weighs 50.39 tons with a 700 horsepower engine, which means that the horsepower to weight ratio is actually not that bad. You do get quite a good kick out of this, and you do see that 43 km/h speed limit on flat ground, reasonable ground as well. Maybe not so much on a slight incline. On a slight incline you'll see about 30, 35, but this is not a slow tank destroyer. Where it does lack, though, is the traverse speed. The traverse speed is painfully slow, at 21 degrees per second, which means that some tanks that you may not think are capable of encircling you will encircle you, because you do not turn very fast at all. It's just you just sit there trying to point your gun around at the person who's coming after you, and they're just running circles around you. So if you ever see an ISU 152 and you don't get shot by this monster here, I just go around it, run circles around it, blow his tracks off, run circles around him. But it is a fast tank. Well, I say fast. It's not slow. It's not, you know, French fast, but it's not slow. It's not like the Ferdinand where you find sometimes that I wish I had the extra speed to do this, that, and the other. You don't get that with the ISU. You do get up to a reasonable speed. The hull armor. Now, this is where the ISU is very vulnerable. It has 90mm of frontal armor, 90mm of side armor, and 60mm of rear armor, which means from the rear, high caliber high explosive guns, high caliber guns shooting high explosive even, won't really have much of a problem going through your ass. I'm not sure, I could be wrong, but Jagdpanther E100 has what? Hang on, I'll check the ammunition, not the gun. It'll do about 85mm of penetration. So high caliber TD guns, or just high caliber guns in general, will go through your ass with ease with high explosives. So that's just a thing to note, but they don't need to be firing high explosive. They're going to go through you anyway. The only part which I think is the most armoured on the tank is the gun mantlet, and this thing will bounce a surprising amount of shots, like you would not believe. I know this says 90mm, I believe this is about 210 here, and this part here is maybe 300, I think. And then of course with the 90mm behind as well. I saw this on Tank Inspector a while ago. I can't show you Tank Inspector because it doesn't seem to like me using fraps. But I believe this is around 300mm. I might pop an annotation in correcting myself if I'm wrong, which it wouldn't surprise me if I was. But I believe this is around 300mm right here. There's sort of sloping here, which means that 90mm goes up to maybe 100, 110, but anything at tier 8 is going to go through you. Most things at tier 5 can just go straight through your front. You know, the Stug 3, which I have here, you know, that 75mm gun, just 150mm of penetration, it will go through the front of the ISU. So it's not a particularly well armoured tank, but like I said, because it's Russian, this thing bounces shots that you thought that I should have died from. The amount of times this thing has bounced shots and I think, oh crap, I should have died there, but then I don't. That's it's certainly something else. So I'm going to leave this for a second, and because this is all relevant to this, and I'll get onto this in a second. It has 370m view range, and for a tier 8, I'm not too sure. I think, let's see what the prototype is. That's kind of alright. Again, I really need to be doing this sort of stuff in advance, but, you know, I kind of wing it most of the time. So, actually, yeah, I'd say it has a pretty average view range, but it's not great view range for tier 8. I mean, I think... Fuck. That thing pisses me off so much, like you would not believe. So, yeah. It's got a fairly decent view range. Signal range, I don't particularly mind about the signal range. Anyway, onto the gun. Now, the ISU gets a selection of 5 guns, as displayed here. The first one, 152 ML20S, is the same 152mm. Well, it's supposed to be the same 152mm. It looks exactly the same, let's put it like that. It looks exactly the same. It has basically the same it's the same gun. Wargaming just decided to stick an S on the end so that you couldn't take it off this one and shove it on this one, but it makes no difference because it's stock on this tank anyway. And this is just the bog standard dirt howitzer that just 135mm of penetration, 700 damage, nothing special. Definitely not a good gun at tier 8. You know, it's not particularly accurate, long aiming time. I suppose you could get away with using high explosive, but with 3.51 second reload, 3.51 rounds a minute, it's not particularly. This is not a good gun. And if you have any sense on the SU-152, you will have researched the D25S, which you can then straight away put onto the ISU-152. I don't have it because I sold it because it's a piece of crap. Now on the ISU-152, this 122mm, whilst it may have been good on the SU-152, sucks. It really, really sucks. I personally went straight through this gun to this gun with free experience because I just could not handle this. Call me a noob, yeah, I probably am. But I could not make this gun work for the life of me. It's just such a terrible gun that it's just 175mm of penetration on a tank destroyer that sits at tier 8, which can get in with tier 10s. It's just not good at all. The BL9S, I haven't researched it myself. I'm actually very close to researching the Object 704. I'm keeping the ISU, by the way, because, well, I'll tell you in a second. The BL9S, it's basically just a BL9 with an S stuck on the end, so you can't take it off of the IS3 or research it from the IS3 and use it on this. That's just Wargaming's way of doing things, but it's basically the same. It fires a bit faster, still 225mm of penetration, not 300, actually no, 390 damage, my bad. Same as you get on the IS3. I'm pretty sure the accuracy is the same, and I'm pretty sure the aiming time is the same. In fact, I will just verify that now if I go bring the stats right up next to each other. Yeah, so they're both tier 9 guns. This one fires a bit faster, this one's a little bit more accurate, and this it's got better aiming time. All in all, it's the same gun. Just minor differences that you wouldn't be able to tell for the life of you. Anyway, that leaves us with this one. I haven't really covered this one here, but that's just even worse than this one, so yeah. Onto this gun, the 152mm BL10. This is the gun that you get the ISU for. You don't buy the ISU because you want the ISU, you buy the ISU because you want the BL10. That was certainly my reasoning for it. Let's take a look, shall we? So, it's a 152mm gun, fires 3.41 rounds a minute, 286mm of penetration, 750 average damage. Your eyes are not deceiving you. That is what it is. That is a very large amount of penetration, that is a very large amount of damage right there. Some people say this gun is overpowered, or this tank is overpowered at tier 8, and you could be right in saying that, but I think it's the same sort of situation as the KV-1S, and I'll explain in a second. It has 0.41 accuracy and 3.4 second aiming time, so you could say that yes, terrible rate of fire, terrible accuracy, terrible aim time. What's the point? Well, this is the point. You know, I'm sorry, but anything at tier 8 that does this much damage with this much penetration, I mean, let me put this into perspective for you. So you have an IS-3, you're parked at a corner with the BL-10 just sitting there. An IS-3 pops round the corner, you plant a 152mm shell into his side, and he runs off screaming because he's just lost half of his hit points. And that would have been, I think that would have been exactly half of his hit points. An IS-3 has 1,500 hit points. That will take off. If it hits average, that'll take off half of his hit points easily. You can two-shot kill any tier 8 or tier 7 or below tank with this gun. I've one-shotted KV-1Ss with this gun. I've one-shotted many a tier 6 with this gun. I have two-shot killed many a tier 7 and tier 8 with this gun. Hell, I've even 2 or 3 shot killed tier 10s with this gun. This is a gun to be feared of. When you go into a tier 10 game with an ISU 152, you do not give shit number 1, because you know that the tanks on the receiving end of this are going to be in just as much pain as if they were at tier 8. So yeah. And of course this is the same gun if you're clever enough to research it on the ISU 152, which you should be anyway. You get it straight away on the Object 704, which means you only have to research the tracks, which is another benefit, because then you research the tracks and now all of a sudden you're a tier higher with still a tier 10 gun. This time you have more armor and you don't have that much to research. Well, I suppose you do. It's 301,000 to the 268, but you know what I mean. So this gun is an absolute monster. Absolute monster. It just rips people apart. It preys on the weak-minded and just kind of beats them to death with their. It just rips their tracks off and beats them to death with the blunt end, if there is a blunt end, which there probably isn't. Anyway, so I was saying beforehand how people say this tank is overpowered. Now, if you were to look at the KV-1S at tier 6 with the 122mm gun, yes, it has a 122mm gun. Yes, it does 390 average damage with 175mm of penetration, but look at the rate of fire, look at the accuracy, and look at the aim time. On top of that, look at the armor, and it's fast, but it's not, well, it's quick, but it's not ridiculously fast. It's not as overpowered as some people may think. And because it's Russian, the RNG on the gun, that's something else I forgot to mention on the ISU, the RNG on the gun just decides to hit when it wants to. It doesn't do anything that you tell it to do by will. And it's the same situation with the ISU 152. If you look at it really, the gun takes a long time to reload. I've got my reload to about 14 seconds, which is faster than it was before, which was at about 16 or 17 seconds when you first get it, I think. It's 0.4 on accuracy, so realistically speaking, at long ranges, you're not that good at hitting things. And with a 3.4 second aiming time, it's going to take a while for you to aim at someone to guarantee a hit. And the RNG this gun gets is stupid, absolutely fucking stupid. You will come close to selling this tank in absolute disgust, because you point it at the side of an AMX 1390 whilst he's driving at you, or whilst he's driving across you, more like. You pull the trigger and it blows his tracks off. You fire at the entirety of the aiming circle is covering the side of a tank, apart from a 1 square millimeter that is not. You pull the trigger and the shell goes through there, or it just bounces off his side. Bear in mind the tank that you're shooting at only has 50 millimeters of side armor. So this gun will make you scream, it will make you want to smash your computer, but at the same time you will laugh your ass off when it does work for you. It has a mind of its own. It does what it wants when it wants. And yesterday, or I think the day before, it was the worst day I think I've ever had with this tank, or any tank. The RNG would not work for me whatsoever. Every shot in any tank, for that matter, that I pulled the trigger at, it just decided, no, I'm not hitting anything. Whether that be the 28 prototype, Jagdpanzer 100, Tiger 2, I just got this today, so I'm just going to discount that. It didn't hit, nothing hit. But this one tends not to hit. So accompanied with that poor occasional RNG, and the fact that it's got a long aiming time, a long reload, not particularly good accuracy, and the fact that it only has 90mm of hull armor, realistically speaking, a tier 6 can kill this from the front. Yes, he'll probably lose all, if not most, of his hit points, but he can still kill you. It's not like this thing is unkillable, just like the KV-1S is unkillable. I wouldn't say it's overpowered. It's actually a fairly well-balanced machine, and along with the fact that its traverse speed is terrible, means that if you can get around it, you've killed it. You know, getting around the side of an ISU or the rear of an ISU, unless you're a complete tard, which some guy was when I, not cliff dived, but charged down a hill at him. He moved out the way, tried to get around my side, and then I just denied him and shot him in the face, and he died. So unless you're a complete retard and you can't understand how, simple outmaneuvering, outflanking tactics work, then this thing is not as overpowered as you might think. The tank is effectively built around the gun. The gun is the thing that could potentially be conceived as being overpowered, but yeah, some people will probably disagree and say, oh no, it's definitely overpowered, this, that and the other, but just please take into consideration some of the other factors that this thing, has. So yeah. Anyway, so I've got my standard little ammo loadout here. Again, I don't really use gold. I think when I loaded gold to see what it was like, all of a sudden the RNG was just like, nope. And it seemed to stay like that until I loaded standard AP, so I think that was the game telling me to not use APCR. Also, it costs quite a lot, 4,800 per shot. So yeah. Now, equipment loadout. I have gun rammer, which I highly suggest. Vents, which is questionable for a tank destroyer. However, it helps reduce the aim time, helps reduce the reload. It just improves the tank as a whole by 5%. And of course, this reduces the reload by 10%. Now, I've got a camo nets on this, but I don't really. If you've ever seen me play tank destroyer, which I highly doubt any of you have, I tend to play my tank destroyers like medium tanks, and I play very, 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 very aggressively, and I tend to get fairly good results with it. Very rarely would you ever see me sitting at the back of sitting at the back of the map, picking off targets. I'm not good at that. I probably wouldn't do anything at all if I played this tank like that, or any tank destroyer like that. I even do it with the Jagdpanzer 100, for fuck's sake. I even try and do it with the T28 prototype, which has a stupidly slow speed limit, 18 kilometers an hour. It's stupid, and I don't like it. But yeah, I don't like sitting at the back of the map. However, I would probably suggest it if that is your playstyle, because I think the Russian tank destroyers tend to get quite good camo rating. I think it's been nerfed with the 8.11 patch, but I think, as in all the tank destroyers, I mean. But I think the tank destroyers, or certainly this one, gets fairly good camo rating. So I'd probably I haven't done it myself, but I'd probably try and stack camouflage and put a camouflage net on. However, it might be worth swapping out the vents for binocular telescopes. Probably an enhanced gun laying drive, to be honest. It's just the aim time is just that bad. Well, it's not bad, but it is. But I'd probably go for that as well. If you play like me, you might want to go for a coated optics instead of the camo net. I just had a camo net lying around, so I shoved it on. That was basically my reasoning behind it. And because artillery loves to shoot at me, it probably would be a good idea putting a heavy spall liner on. And this thing does weigh quite a bit, so you can pull off some fairly effective ramming tactics if you are confident you weigh more than the tank you're ramming. Anyway, so crew skills. I think I had this from my IS-8 crew. Let me check. I have absolutely no idea. If I go USSR, yeah, that was my IS-8 crew that I've basically got in here, accompanied with a KV-5 loader, I think. I'm not sure. I really can't remember. But that basically meant that I already had 2 crew skills loaded, so I just had to get them to 100% on here. And this basically means that the Brothers in Arms comes into effect, so I think it adds 5% having Brothers in Arms stacked, and they do all have to have Brothers in Arms trained on them for it to work. But that, I think, reduces everything by 5% or improves everything by 5%. So again, now on top of having 10%, minus 10% to the loading time, plus the minus 5% loading time from this, and minus the 5% loading time from this, that's minus 20% loading time on this thing. So yeah, it's perfectly optional. I'd probably go for camouflage and then repairs, or repairs then camouflage, because having your tracks knocked off in a tank destroyer is never a good idea, or never a good thing. And it certainly saves yourself using a repair kit if you don't have to use one. So it's definitely a good idea to put repairs on, but camouflage is definitely a good option as well. I might end up swapping out this repair for Sixth Sense, just so I don't get killed as much. So yeah, but really I'd say it's preference, but there are some things that you shouldn't put on. Like, I mean, you know, I think it's the gunner that gets it. Was it Snapshot? You don't have a fucking turret, so you can't do it. However, Deadeye, risky, because damage to enemy crew or modules also includes the tracks, and if you're shooting at the side of a tank, I'd rather have a more chance of doing damage than blowing his tracks off. So yeah, it's some stuff to avoid. But it's things like smooth ride. You don't need it. You know what I mean? I wouldn't suggest ever firing on the move with this thing. However, I do it occasionally, and it's quite funny when you just drive by, rape someone for 700 damage, and casually swoop off as if nothing happened. So yeah, it's a lot of fun, this tank, and I think I might end up showing you both the games. So this will be a much longer replay. This will be a much longer thing, if you wish, than normal, purely because of the amount of time that I have to spend showing you both these replays. So I shall be right back when I have the replays loaded. So this is the game, as promised. Now, I was going to show you the other game that I had, the first mastery badge that I theoretically got in this tank, which was today. However, the game was a bit underwhelming, and probably wasn't a good, accurate portrayal of why people are scared of this deadly, destroying tank of death. And it was a confrontation game, so I don't know. But I've decided to show you this one because I personally feel it's a bit more exciting. More happens in it. So, as promised, I tend to play this thing very aggressively, very upfront. I don't like to sit at the back, where some tank destroyers may go sit over in this area over here and shoot inwards, kind of like that, but I personally just do not like doing that at all. It's not my style, if you wish. I mean, everyone's got their own little style. It's not my style, and I'm kind of getting better at playing this thing aggressively without dying. So yeah, so I go over here with this T-57 Heavy to see if I can't give him any backup, because I think spreading out along this village or town is probably crucial, to be honest, just to make sure that you actually get a half-decent chance of winning and covering all angles of attack. However, of course, if you spread your tanks thin across here, it means that lots of tanks over here are going to knock them out. So it's kind of a bit of a balance that you need to get right. But our team seems to have done something now. I'm not sure if you saw that, but there was a little bit of cloud appearing over there, and I see that. That's caught my eye, so I'm expecting there to be a tank of some sorts over there, but I have no idea what it is. So I set myself up in a position. I was thinking about shooting the 1375, and then, oh, it's a Jagdpanther. Now, just look how little of the Jagdpanther is actually there. If I was to show you, it's probably about this much, or this is probably the wall that's covering him, or the cover that is covering him, about here, and there's probably about this much over here that I can actually see. And we just do 810 damage to him. That was a very high roll. Well, it wasn't even a high roll, it was just a high roll. The highest roll I've ever seen was 912 damage, and that was to a IS7, I think? I can't remember, but that was 810 damage. Now, some of you with a keen eye may know that 810 damage is the amount of hit points that a KV-1S has. So that would have been a one-shot kill on a KV-1S, which I've done before, and it is very satisfying because it's funny. So yeah. So I come over here to help this Jagdtiger in this M103 because I don't like sitting on that corner on my own, and the servers apparently have had a bit of a lag recently, and I'm starting to see that, and I kind of miss a very easy shot, I think. But I think that was more due to the lag than it was to me, and I get fairly pissed off about it, but not too much. So these guys start shooting at this 5120 before he's even spotted. Now I'm considering shooting him, but I don't think the shot's going to penetrate. It is a 5120, so he is made out of paper, but even a 5120 at the right angle can bounce shots. And that's something to bear in mind sometimes. So I held my fire because it was a bit of a dodgy shot, but it could have penetrated. I don't know. We'll never know, but it might have done. Some people may have taken that shot, but I wanted to conserve my ammo in case somebody with a definite shot came around. That's a Jagdpanzer E100. I'm not sure if any of you have seen my Jagdpanzer E100 review, or if this even goes up before this ISU 152 review. But a Jagdpanzer E100 is more than capable of one-shot killing an ISU 152. Now, I think it's around this point here that a 112 pops out. I see him, take the shot. Hang on, the fuck happened? Oh, that's right, the server's lagged. And if that wasn't the case, then that was definitely a ghost shell. Definitely a ghost shell. If it, you saw the shell go straight through his tank, but I think that was more server lag than anything. So yeah, so I set myself back up here, just kind of defend this flank. I thought the Jagdpanzer 100 was going to be very brave, but instead I see 112 pop round, and I set him on fire, and then he tracks me. I don't actually think I took any damage this game. It was a very surreal game. I had lots of tanks that should have penetrated me and should have done damage to me, but just didn't. I can't for the life of me work out how. And I think there's a fairly decent example of the gun mantlet getting to work here. I think I shoot an FV2 on 5B. Very tough nut to crack. And here's what I suggest you don't do. Firing a blind shot like that. Now, I think, I could be wrong, that one hit my gun mantlet. Yes, it did. There we are. That's a good portrayal. So, Wizzy 132. Oh, no. Was it? T-34-2, never mind. T-34-2, you might not have been using the 100mm, but even so, I think it's got more than 100mm of armour. We only have 90mm of armour here, but this gun mantlet is so ridiculously thick that if people hit it, like that poor bastard over there did, and he paid the price for it, if you hit it, you're going to bounce. And I wouldn't really suggest firing clutch like that at the T-34-2, but I felt he was going to get away if I didn't plant a shot into him. And unfortunately, it worked. So I pull right the way back because I don't want the FV2 on 5B to hit me. Now, these guys, I don't think quite understand how the game works at the moment, because I think it was 8.10 or 8.10 meant that... And he hits my gun. This is just brilliant. It takes me a while to register what I'm doing, but walls are destructible. So I shot straight through a wall and hit the FV2 on 5B. I don't think these guys realised that, because it looks like they were shooting at his turret, and I'm pretty sure that FV2 on 5B thought he was pretty invincible as well. So I can't tell you how much damage I've done, because I don't have XVM, because the server, or the new 8.11 came out just now. And now there's a 5120 over here, and I think I only do about 600 damage, but I could be wrong, and I thought the shot missed. So, you see, I fire the shot, you don't see it that well, because the camera just decided to fuck off, but from my perspective, when I played the game, I saw the shot go low, and there was a slight server lag, and then all of a sudden it came up with saying that I hit him and done damage to him, so that was nice. So yeah. So this is a good description of, or good portrayal of how inept some people are when it comes to knowing what how the game mechanics work. And I think the fact that those idiots were shooting at the turret of an FE215B instead of shooting straight through the wall that he was hiding behind kind of shows and demonstrates that. Now it could be benefit of the doubt, you know, they just had a bit of a brain fart, we've all done it. And that was a bit of a wasted shell. I think that was only about 500 damage I did to him. I can't be too sure. So it was a bit of a wasted shell, but it was funny anyway. So hopefully this game has showed you exactly how well and how devastating the BL10 can be, and how devastating the ISU can be, and how troll it can be. I mean, you know, let me... Oh shit, I forgot how to work this. Let's just take a look. So I bounced a shot from here. This wasn't a bounce, this is not a penetration. Bounced a shot on the gun mantlet. Both the tracks 8 damage at one point or another. And an FV215B, tier 10 heavy tank, just damaged my gun. Didn't knock it out, just damaged it. This thing only has 90mm of armor at the front and the side and 60 at the rear. And I don't think I kill him, but no, I just track him, and that's what I mean. That's what I mean. Sometimes you aim at someone. I was an artillery, 286mm of penetration. Should have gone straight into his side and killed him. Just blew his tracks off. It's fine. It was the furthest track away from him, of course, which is the one right on the edge of the aiming circle. But what you're gonna do? So yeah, like I said, I hope this game was a pretty good representation of why this tank is so feared and why people kind of get a bit paranoid around it, and also why people might think it's overpowered as well. But hopefully I've outlined why I personally don't think it is. I could just be biased because I drive the tank myself, but you never know. So yeah, this has been M&K Xbox's review, if you wish, of the ISU 152 Tier 8 Tank Destroyer. Catch you next time.